Yeah, that was actually another thing that kind of came up was a number of press and this Fashion Week situation was happening. And as I'm emailing retailers, I'm thinking, I wonder if I should be emailing my retailers that I'm on the Fashion Week calendar. Like, that seems like something that should be interesting to them.
Yeah.
If someone famous wore something, if TikTok went viral, if there's some sort of press or events happening within the brand, I just was like, I feel like that's something that retailers should know. And I had spoken to a friend that's an expert within the luxury wholesale world. And I was like, do you ever send emails to the retailers with what's going on, any updates? And she was like, yeah, every 2 weeks. Or as frequently as things kind of come out.
Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. If you're looking to get more sales, more customers, master your marketing, and ultimately take control of your retail or e-commerce business, then you're in the right place. I'm Selena Knight, a retail growth strategist and multi-award-winning store owner whose superpower is uncovering exactly what your business requires to move to the next level. I'll provide you with the strategies, the tools, and the insight you need to scale your store. All you need to do is take action. Ready to get started? You're listening to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I'm Selena Knight, your host, retail growth strategist, and someone who loves to have a chat. Yes, I am that annoying person who, if you sit next to me on the bus, I'm probably going to have a conversation with you. If we're in the supermarket line and the line's really long, I'm probably going to start a conversation with you. So having a podcast is my natural way of communicating with you and with everybody else when it comes to sharing my knowledge and, hey, just building connections. I've just returned from a long weekend of skiing. It's been a bit of a whirlwind couple of weeks, maybe just over a month, because we had online retailer, then we were down in Melbourne for the trade show. A few days later, I was off skiing. Now I have come up for a breath. Today is my day to sit down and record a bunch of podcasts. And just before I started recording this one with Masha Titova, we were talking about how I'd just come back from skiing and there is a lot of money out there. I really should have taken some pictures, but when we drove into the ski hire place, which is actually an hour from the snow, we drove into the ski hire place, we pre-booked, we pretty much thought we'd be in and out in about 15 or 20 minutes. No, how wrong we were. 45 minutes just standing in line, waiting to be served. It was nearly an hour later that we left the building. The thing is, that was only one level. The snowboard hire, it's on a completely separate level. And I was looking around, as I said, I will talk to anyone about anything, especially if there's a really long line. And there were lots of families, there were lots of couples, there were lots of young people. There wasn't a particular demographic standing in this line. But what I realized was there is a crap ton of money standing in that line. And you can't tell anything from looking at somebody. You would think all these people must be really, really well off. But there were some people who were not dressed like they were really well off. But skiing or snowboarding is not cheap. Anything about the snow is not cheap. A weekend away is probably going to cost you around $1,400 per person. By the time you pay for your ski rental, your accommodation, which is ridiculously expensive, food, lift tickets, it all adds, your parks pass to get into the national park where the ski fields are, it all adds up. And it is certainly not cheap. So I was standing in that line just thinking, there is a lot of money here. But as we drove into the car park, so, backing up, beep, 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 a few sections, as we drove into the car park, which is a really big car park, there's a lot of people standing around. And they were all standing around this Airstream, drinking coffee, having their cheese toasties, generally just enjoying life. There must have been 50 people milling around this extremely overpriced beautiful Airstream, but everyone was having fun. No one was whinging. And all I could see were dollar signs. Then I went into the ski hire place, more dollar signs. It was not unusual for people to be handing over $1,000 to buy brand new ski gear while I was waiting in line because I passed the till. I was standing at the till for quite some time. So fast forward, we were staying with a scout group, so the accommodation we were staying in was pretty cheap and pretty basic. It's kind of like camping indoors. But heading up to the mountain, finding the food like $25 for a chicken schnitzel and chips, $13 for hot chips, $7 for a can of soft drink. These prices are exorbitant, let alone your $150 for a lift ticket. As I said, all the ski gear that comes with it. And if you've got a family, we're talking a lot of money. But the lines for everything were ridiculously long. The queue for food, those $25 chicken schnitzels, was over half an hour long. Over 100 people deep, waiting to spend their money. So please, if you are thinking right now that with everything that's going on, I know interest rates are going up. I know that your cost of goods is going up. Your wages are going up. Your rent's probably going up. Everything is going up. And I talked just recently about how you have to be increasing your prices. But if you think that you can't continue to create a business that makes a profit because people are tightening their belts, then you have to reassess your business model. You have to reassess your products and your customers. Because I can tell you, there are a lot of people out there with a lot of money, and they are looking to spend it. So I heard this conversation quite a few times when we were doing our one-on-one sessions at the trade fair, people saying, customers just aren't spending enough. But I really want you to think about that, because if your customers are not spending enough, why? What is it that you're not giving them to make them come back? Or are you just targeting the wrong customers? It is time to take a good hard look at your business and see if how you've worked up until now is going to be how you continue. And is it still going to be profitable? So today's episode with Masha Titova, we talk about loads of things. We talk about trade shows, we talk about marketing, we talk about KPIs. But what I wanted you to take away from today's episode was that as a brand owner, she is looking at ways to work with her retailers. She's looking at production. She's looking at design. She's looking at the content that she is giving out to her retailers to help them to help sell her brand. And if your suppliers aren't doing stuff like this, as you take a good hard look at your brand, reassess what the brand you're bringing in. Who are they to your customers? Are they actually giving you everything that you need, or are they costing you money? We have this thing inside of Scale Your Store called the Perfect Product Matrix. And it's got two halves. One is the volume and the margin that you create on the product, but the other one is about the supplier as a whole and how they work with you. And when you put the two of those things together, you end up with a ranking. And if you have a choice of a supplier like Masha and her Titov label, who is giving you amazing content that you can use to sell their products, they move up the list of suppliers that you want to work with. They get a higher ranking, and you work with them to create promotions. You work with them to create the brand, to create the interest and the hype, and to get your customers engaged. You don't have to do this all on your own. So enjoy today's episode with Masha Titova. It's lots of fun. We have quite a few laughs throughout the conversation, but take away from it are your brands that you're working with helping you to help sell their products. And if they're not, you need to make a choice. Do you continue to work with them? Do you approach them and see what you can do? Or is it time to get rid of them? Because right now, we are in a landscape of change, and you have to be changing in order to stay profitable. Speaking of profitable, if you have a whole bunch of stock sitting in your stock room, on your shelves, maybe in a warehouse, the fact is that is costing you money. That stock you could be using to buy new products that your customers actually want to see. So if you want to free up the money and fill up your shelves with stuff that your customers want to buy, make sure you head over to selenaknight.com/stock and check out my inventory management masterclass where I will show you why that stock isn't moving in the first place, the formula to decide when to get rid of it, and a whole bunch of strategies that you can use to get that stock gone, to turn that old dusty stock into cash that you can use to create more money. Plus, I've just added a bunch of bonuses into that program as well that you'll get for free that will help you to turn that old dusty stock into cash. All right, selenaknight.com/stock, and let's jump into today's episode with Masha Titova. Today on the show, we have Masha Titova, who is a fashion designer born in Boston, raised in Moscow, and consulting in LA. She's worked with brands like Kanye West and BCBG Max Zazria, and she has taken the leap to move back to Boston and start her own high-end lingerie label. We have just had the best pre-conversation before starting this, so I'm going to jump in and continue the conversation. Masha, welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Now, you and I have both just finished trade shows, so I want to talk a little bit about that. But tell us about, you've got a really colorful history. You've done a lot of things with a lot of people, so we need to know about that first before we jump into the trade show stuff.
Yes, definitely have done a lifetime amount in a few short years. My entire background has always been in the fashion world in one way or another. So as you mentioned, I've lived all over the place. I've interned in Boston and in New York, and I worked in Los Angeles and in Boston and in New York. Marc Jacobs, BCBG, Yeezy, they were all within the product development world. At Yeezy, I was doing a lot of packaging and branding as well and logistical work. And afterwards, I was doing a number of consulting opportunities too with startups. And I realized after working for a large corporation like BCBG and then moving to something that felt a way more startup like Lisette, I just love the startup world. I love being able to see how one thing affects another thing and being a part of it and seeing the growth of everything. And I've always wanted my own company. So down within that whole path, I was slowly working on my own company parallel to working full time. And during the pandemic, I moved to Boston to start my own company. And thankfully, now that the pandemic is like kind of doing its thing and going away, in the last year, I moved to New York City. So now I'm full-time based here and doing my brand Titov full-time.
Okay. I want to get your opinion on this. I was listening to a podcast the other day with Ryan Dice and Perry Belcher from Digital Marketer. It's called Business Lunch. I love it. And they were talking about how when you either, have worked with a big brand like that or you've built your own business, when you start a new business, you're kind of starting from the bottom, even though you have all this experience, all this knowledge, all these connections. The fact is, when you go into a new opportunity or a new business, you're starting from scratch and you can get a little bit overwhelmed because you think, hold on, I know all this stuff. Like I should just be able to trot right in and I am going to be a superstar within 6 months. I know I felt that way. Did you feel that way as well?
Definitely more so than I should have.
Yeah.
And it hits you really fast as to how inaccurate that thought process is. And it's really funny because I have a lot of friends that are just like serial entrepreneurs and they're always raising money and can't wait to flip company in 5 years and start something new. And I actively am always the one outlier saying, no, please no. I would like this to just grow and keep growing. And I don't want to start it over again. Don't make me sell it. Don't just let me get out of the startup phase because it is hard. And I feel like it doesn't even matter if you have a ton of money, if you don't have a ton of money, experience, no experience. It's just at the end of the day, it is time and effort that you have to put in no matter what. And I think a lot of people don't anticipate it starting out.
Do you think there's any, because how long have you been doing this now on your own label?
Approaching 3 years.
Okay. So do you think you're out of startup land yet?
I think I'm like just on the cusp of it. Like I think another maybe year and a half, and then I'll finally feel like I'm in I'm in a groove, because we spoke a little bit about this, and this trade show was only my second one ever because of COVID. So I feel like because of all the back and forth and craziness of lockdowns, things were delayed. So I feel like I need another good couple of seasons of wholesale to really see what that cash flow is going to look like for me to kind of feel more confident that I'm not in this like crazy running around with your head chopped off startup mode.
Which the only reason I ask that is because the conversation is going to end up where we're going to be talking about some of the amazing opportunities that you're going to have. And if we had started there, people would be like, oh my God, she must have been in business forever, because we're talking New York Fashion Week. It's like, this is a huge opportunity. But it's funny to hear you say you still think you're kind of in that startup phase, despite the fact that these big opportunities are sort of sitting out there. And we talked about trade shows and how the insight you get when you're there from the other exhibitors and also from the retailers who are attending is so eye-opening. So let's have a little bit of a chat about what you learned at your trade show and what I learned at my trade show, because I think there are some parallels, even though they were vastly different.
Oh yeah, definitely. So some of the key items that I thought were really fascinating just throughout the couple of days that I was at the trade show, when talking to anyone, especially my fellow like brand from the left and brand from the right of me, when there'd be a random lull and you just start chit-chatting with everyone, you really start to understand how long they've been in business, what it took for them to get the orders that they're getting, how they know everyone, how consistency is incredibly important. There are some retailers that are quite large that you wish to be in, and then you hear about how they are incredibly late on payments, and you need to be really careful when doing a contract with them because they could really, really screw you over. And I got like a whole rundown of which retailers those are and what's the best practice to go about making sure you get paid accurately.
I mean, just stopping there. That information, even if you, and I'm not saying you did, but even if you got no sales at the trade show, whatever it cost you to be there, that information was probably worth amount of money, because
100%.
I have seen brands go under because they get a contract with like a department store or a larger chain store.
All the production money up all the time, the resource, and then they never pay you. And I hear,
or they just go, you know what, this doesn't sell. It's yours again.
Give it back. Yep. And then that's why TJ Maxx is doing really well.
Cents on the dollar.
Where all the inventory goes. Yep. Yeah, it's definitely, I thought it was just really incredible too, because even as we're talking, you think, oh, these brands, they're like legacy brands. Everyone knows them. You think they're doing so well, and then you realize they can't even pay on time. So it's always grass is greener. And I feel like it makes you feel better about where you sit. And also it makes you really understand that it's hard all around, and it humbles you. And another thing that I thought was really interesting is there are trade shows around the world. And since I'm in New York, for me to walk a few blocks to a trade show in New York City isn't that much of a cost thing for me, but to fly to Paris for a trade show or to fly to Vegas for a trade show, to be able to be there for a few days, hotel, stay, flight, plus trade show setup, shipping everything there, that's all of a sudden a very substantial cost. And I was able to talk to a number of brands that have done them. And they told me, oh, you need to do this type of booth instead of that type of booth. You should definitely do it. But don't do it until you have enough connections where you know you have appointments. And these are the types of stores that go there. If those stores seem to be up your alley, then it's worth it. If it's not, then you need to rethink it. And it was just really, really great in terms of understanding what you even needed to do as like pre-work for the trade show to make sure that when you do go there, you're getting your investments worth back, and that you're going to get the sales and everything. So great information.
Isn't it funny how obliging other exhibitors are? Like, I found the same thing. People are more than happy to give you that information, to tell you how many orders. Like, we had two where we were. We had two games, like board games, one, a very large company straight across from us, and next to us, a smaller company that did like Dungeons and Dragons types games.
Mm-hmm.
And they were quite happily saying, oh, you need to be getting at least 60 orders a day. This was for them. They were chatting to each other. Like, this is the kinds of numbers that you need. Do you find that the first day is better or the third day is better? Like, what kind of offers? And that, like, this is where I love the whole concept of being part of the retail community, because too many retailers think they're at competition with the store that's next to them. But I call it like the car yard scenario. When you go to buy a car and there's 10 car yards all in a row, like they're all competition, but they're all working together because not everything is going to be perfect for everyone. And if you win, we all win, right? There's enough customers to go around, and just being able to share that information and not hold it back, not be very closed and guarded. The fact is, at the end of the day, if we know our customers better, then fantastic. If your brand gets better, maybe it pushes the price of lingerie up. Maybe we're in different categories. It doesn't matter. But any help you can give is always going to come back to you.
The entire weekend, anyone I had spoken to, like friends, or if I was on the phone with anyone, they'd be like, oh, how's it going? And the one statement just shocking was how incredibly helpful and kind and collaborative everyone is. Like, I mean, I've been in a lot of different situations within the fashion industry, and I do feel like there's definitely like a clickiness, like cattiness in areas. And I remember setting up for the trade show, about to like pass out because I was so nervous, and how I was like, man, I'm an imposter. What am I doing here? I mean, totally freaking out. And then within an hour, it's just, you realize that it is the kindest, just most pleasant humans to be around. And yeah, you're right. There was a showroom right next to me. They were telling me all about their brands that, because lingerie is a little bit different, since there isn't really seasonality to it. So I asked like, oh, how many like new SKUs do brands put out typically? Is it every 6 months or is it every 2 years? And they're like, oh no, you shouldn't be putting out anything new for like 3 years. Everyone needs a black bra, just like run with it. It's fine. And they're telling me like what the typical like new collection rate is for all of their brands. And then another booth was like, oh, you should make sure your minimum orders aren't lower than this, or it's not worth your time. Make sure your contracts say this. They like it when they have this type of terminology, and like ran through all of the terms and conditions with what they would do and what they've heard with their 15 years of experience in the industry. And because everyone knew it was only my second ever trade show, and the first was a little bit dead because it was still kind of COVID and not a lot of people kind of flew in for New York. A lot of people know people by face. They're like, oh, Susie, oh, Kevin, oh, hey, like, and they just know in what store it is. But it's like, okay, I'm trying to find this one store in Brooklyn. I don't know even if I found the picture of an owner, it's so hard when like, depending on how your hair is done and what you're wearing. And it's just like, it's so hard to tell what person is from where. And I swear the entire weekend, someone would walk through the doors, and it didn't matter who I looked at. One of the booths would start mouthing what store it was. And then they'd talk to them and then force them to come over to me and like talk to me. And it's just that level of caring. And you're right. We're not really competitors, because we all just want to succeed, and everyone just wants everyone to succeed. And one is bralettes, and one is structured, and one is plus size cups, and one is a sleepwear brand. Everyone's doing different stuff, and everyone's stuff looks different. So there is no real competition. Another brand was like, hey, do you have G-strings? Because there's this lady that's looking for G-strings everywhere. And I was like, I do. I don't have them here, but like I can send her the email. She's like, great, I'll send you her email. Like, just whatever. And it's just, like, everyone is just hoping everyone gets sales. And it is like the last day, the proof of like good humans was just so relevant from it. And it really, really made, like, to me, I was like, if this is the reason I'm in business, so I can go to this trade show every 6 months and like have this like happy high of just being around amazing people, I'll do it. It's just it truly, truly amazing.
Okay. because we both talked just before our trade shows and we talked about KPIs. And I know for me, I went with a specific set of KPIs, but ours were a little bit different. We were offering complimentary strategy sessions. We had higher ticket offer and then we had a lower ticket offer that we could downsell to if it was relevant. And I thought we would sell a lot more of the $49 product. But after maybe halfway through the first day, it was really clear that actually that's not what people were interested in. And so we had to duck off that night to the station. Elizabeth was in Canva creating new signs. We had to duck off to the stationery store the next day to get them printed because after having the conversation, it was clear that we had to reassess everything. And the KPIs that we started with weren't where we were going to end up. So we changed everything around. We changed our offer. We changed the conversation. And as a result, we did much better. Did you find that you had to adjust any of your ideas or concepts after having these conversations with your booth exhibitors or even with the retailers themselves?
Yeah. So I had a similar actually situation to you too, where by halfway through the second day, I had to go and print more line sheets because even though I printed about 50% more than the first time, I was out. And then I was still I completely ran out by the end of the halfway through the last day. So that was like a really exciting thing. Definitely talking to other retailers. And I had one friend that helped me out during the about a day and a half of it. And I am definitely not a salesperson. I can do all the creative, I can do all the logistics, production, but I'm just not a salesperson. I know this, it's something I'm working on. And I had spoken to one of the retailers and she looked at me and she was like, your pitch sucks. We need to work on that right now. I looked at her, I was like, excuse me. And then, so we ran through a few things. I talked to the showrooms because that's their bread and butter. That's what they do all day long. And they also were like, oh, okay, you should say it this way, that way. And I learned that I'm able to do a lot of custom work. And I learned that that's actually the more options you give to retailers, the more kind of scatterbrained they become. And they want really concrete, they want exact deadlines. They want really, really, really structured, just tell them what's up so they can just pick and call it a day. Where I was really kind of being I'll be flexible, I'll do whatever, whatnot. And I heard from a number of brands being oh, a lot of new, that's the number one mistake that a lot of new brands do because they're oh, we're new. Let's be flexible.
Be everything to everyone.
Yeah, be everything to everyone. Exactly. And in reality, as much as it kind of makes sense, that's not what the retailers want because then they were think about it. If you owned a store and you had to do a purchase order for 50 brands, the last thing you want to do is be thinking, oh, what color on the face of the earth could I request from?
It's too much.
It's just too much work. It's just too much. And they really want it streamlined. If you can just pre-package it in a way where it's oh, here's our best-selling sets and the best-selling sizes, they're done. If they don't even have to think about it, that's the best way to go about it. So that was a big eye-opener by the morning of the second day after I was told my pitch sucked, that I then started to really redo things. And same thing when I reprinted my line sheets, I changed some of the delivery and the verbiage and made it a lot more concrete and updated a lot of the terms and conditions and tried to just do things a little bit differently, which I automatically kind of started to see the response was better too throughout the last days. So, yeah. And
the reason I ask you these questions is because you and I have been doing this for a long time. You've been in the fashion industry for a lot of years. I've been in the It doesn't mean you're always going to get it right from the beginning, but you have to be open to looking at the situation and adjusting where needed. And you did it and I did it. And as a result, the outcome is very, very different. But I did see some brands where it was this is what we do and this is how we do it. And if you don't like it, then don't buy from us. And I remember thinking, because there was one kind of a couple of doors down, I remember thinking, I had the conversation, how many orders have you taken? And they're like, none. If you've got to the end of the first day and you haven't taken an order, something is wrong. Like, you got to be okay. If your minimum order's too high, maybe just for that you have a show offer that is, reduced minimum order just to get things, just to get them to try, or you put a trial pack together or something. But they were not open to any conversation about that stuff. So, okay. After the success of your trade show, you have now been invited to New York Fashion Week.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's so overwhelming. I was on the first time ever was last season. We did a digital lookbook release. So it wasn't a in-person show or anything. And for this time around, I knew that there was just physically no way to do a physical show, but I really wanted to be able to present a digital lookbook again, and a video presentation will be on. Right now, we're trying to figure out the best time to be placed on the calendar. And that's when the video will be released alongside a lot of amazing brands. And our lookbook will live on the NewYorkFashionWeek.com website. And I'm really, really excited. We're doing our shoot in 2 days. So it's just been a lot of last minute crunch work.
So what does this mean for the retailers that work with you and the potential retailers? Because we primarily work with retail and e-commerce brands, but sometimes we work with product brands or distributors or suppliers. And we have had a very similar conversation, which is you have to be working with your stores because they're your agents. Without them, you have to work twice as hard to get people to buy your stuff. Every store that you're in is hundreds and thousands of customers every single year that you potentially would never have had access to. And if you don't work with those stores, then the chance of them reordering is so much lower.
That was actually another thing that kind of came up was a number of press, and this Fashion Week situation was happening. And as I'm emailing retailers, I'm thinking, I wonder if I should be emailing my retailers that I'm on the Fashion Week calendar. Like, that seems like something that should be interesting to them.
Yeah.
If someone famous wore something, if TikTok went viral, if there's some sort of press or events happening within the brand, I just was like, I feel like that's something that retailers should know. And I had spoken to a friend that's an expert within the luxury wholesale world. And I was like, do you ever send emails to the retailers of what's going on? Any updates? And she was like, yeah, every 2 weeks. Or as frequently as things kind of come out. Yep. But she was like, but at least once a month, you should just make a separate newsletter, and it's updates and all the things happening with your brand. And especially if you're already using a MailChimp, a Klaviyo. I use Klaviyo. So for me, I already have a system in place. Why am I only using that for B2C when I can also use it for B2B? Right after this photo shoot, I am going to set up a template for my B2B retailers. And this way it gives content to the retailers to promote on their socials and kind of have something extra for salespeople to talk about the brand and help sell it. And it will really help any brand that might be interested but still hasn't quite placed an order. It might push them over that line to finally place an order. And you're right. I mean, if you help bring content to your retailer, the likelihood of their items selling out quicker is more likely. And if they sell out quicker, they can do a reorder and less things go on sale. And it's just a win-win for everyone. So I think it's really important to not forget about them after they actually place the order.
I mean, content is that thing pretty much everyone struggles with. I struggle with it. The retailers I work with struggle with it. So having a brand, and we used to work with one brand who was amazing at this stuff. Having a brand that is consistently giving you something that is going to generate interest and not just more pictures, because you're talking about, the fact that you're going to be at New York Fashion Week is it's a thing. It's not just a picture. There's a story that goes with it. It's a whole, and again, dripping out that content, having the preview and counting down and all those kinds of things, it builds a buzz. And if you make it as easy as possible for your retailers and for your e-commerce stores, then they're going to share that, because anything that's done for you just makes life easier. And you, in my opinion, you would go straight to the top of the let's market the bejesus out of this, because we don't have to do anything. And I'm likely to contact you and maybe say, you know, what can we do to promote it together? Can we do a giveaway, or can we, like, what can we do? Special offer, a package, something to be able to bring that brand to the front of mind for all of our customers. Because again, you work with the retailer. If they're pushing more product and more customers, then you make more money, they make more money, their customers are happier, everybody wins.
Yep. The perfect formula, basically.
What I'm taking away from this is, even though you've spent so long within the industry, and even though you've been doing this for 3 years, you've worked with really big brands where this is kind of second nature, the fact is you're still learning. You're still looking at the customers. You're still looking at your retailers. You're seeing what the market is. And you have to be, like, that's the job of a CEO. You have to be looking at these.
And everything's changing too, right? So like even what worked 5 years ago at one of the companies doesn't work anymore today. So that's another thing. Like, you can't be stagnant just because social media platforms are changing. The advertising sphere is changing. The consumer is changing and what they want. So yeah, you have to be learning. It's just taking whatever you already know and seeing if you can kind of predict the future, I guess.
I have a question about being a luxury brand, because most independent people who start their own line or start their own range generally tend to start out in the, I really want to be nice but affordable. And like, to me, that's like a death sentence.
That's not my viewpoint.
No, we're recording this on a Wednesday. I literally just came back from the snow on Monday. And at the trade show, we had so many people telling us that no one is spending. And when I was picking up my hire skis, the queue, not even at the snow, this is 1 hour from the snow because we pick up our stuff on the way. The queue just to pick up your skis was 1 hour long. And this was on a Friday, on a Thursday, not even on a weekend. That was only one floor. The snowboarders were on the floor below. And I'm going to the ski fields, first run, 20 minutes to get on a lift, which is almost unheard of because there are 200 people standing here. Now, skiing, snowboarding, 100% discretionary spending, right? You don't have to do it. This is 100% your choice. On the mountain, if you wanted to have lunch, chicken schnitzel and chips, $25. Don't try and tell me there's no money out there, because every single person that is there has dropped thousands of dollars to be there. So what I'm trying to get away from, what I'm trying to get to the point to is, as a luxury brand, how do you create that luxury feel so that people, because again, this is 100% discretionary spending. I can buy a bra and underwear at Target, or I can spend a hell of a lot more money and buy gorgeous lingerie from you. How do you make people want to spend the money with you?
Branding. I mean, at the very end of the day, it's what you are saying that resonates with the consumer, right? It's that aspirational, irrational want. And I think that's what really drives luxury, because as you're saying, a lot of discretionary spending in ski, just think of every single luxury brand that bumped their prices 4 times since the pandemic started. And I saw an article today again saying that because the euro to dollar has basically evened out, that they're anticipating Chanel and Louis and Dior to once again hike all of their handbag prices to reflect that the currency exchange. So, and it's like one of those charts where you see a Chanel bag used to be $1,000 and now it's like $17,000, and this is over the span of like 10 years, 50. It's just like the most astronomical prices for items that are not worth that in any way, shape, or form, except for the brand and what you are trying to tell people around you. And I think that is one of the main aspects that I have always worked towards. And I think right now it's really, really honing in. It's a lot of luxury imagery. It's a lot of high-end imagery. It's doing where to go on vacation in the Hamptons and that kind of type of content when speaking of content. But outside of there are customers that are spending. You just need to be offering them something that they want. And outside of that, though, in terms of, I think it's so interesting that you say that a lot of new brands go the affordable route, because I actually don't think that's a good business strategy for
me neither.
Brand, for two reasons. One is if you start out lower end and you introduce a higher end product, you will not succeed because that customer is not there for the higher end items. And it's the same kind of vice versa whenever you see those brands, like even a Marc Jacobs, for example, when they introduce a lower price point, they're cannibalizing their higher price point items. And it's always historically any luxury brand that introduces a lower price point just kills it. You have to stay in your lane.
Can I just jump in there? Because I think a lot of people don't realize, like, I love a good outlet mall shop when I come to the US. Mm-hmm. What people don't realize is, apart from your TJ Maxx, they're not outcast. That whole range in that outlet store has been designed for an outlet store. It is
and produced separately.
Produced separately, designed for a completely different consumer.
Yep.
It's not just the leftovers, which I think most people think, oh, this is the leftovers. Like
there are some, like if you see a Gucci outlet or there are a couple brands, you just have to know. It's like one of those things when you're in the industry, you start to like understand that better. But if you're talking about like a Banana Republic or
Kate Spade, my Coach handbag,
made separately in a different manufacturer with lower price point items specifically so they can be sold with the same margin. And that's why everything always like falls apart if you buy it at like an outlet store. And it's even when I was in college, I worked just retail at a Banana Republic, and it would be as simple as the outlet stores had stars at the very top of the tag. And we were in a normal just banana store, and they would be like, if you ever see a tag with stars, you are not allowed to accept them here because it is an outlet tag and we can't sell outlet because it's not the same.
And same thing here. Like I know a lot of the brands will have like a black tag or a white tag, and that's how they know the difference. Yep. And I just wanted to put that in there because you're saying if you come in at an affordable level and you try and put a high price point in, you're going to alienate your customers. And people might be thinking, but they're outlet malls. But the fact is, they're not. They're completely different demographics. They're different products. They're designed for different consumers. My other thing with affordable is we just talked about discretionary spending. That's the first thing that goes when you're affordable, right? All those extras. When people are, middle class or upper middle class, when it comes, that's what goes first.
And the other thing too, just business wise, like if you are going from square one, building out your business plan, and you are trying to map out financials and how to start your company, it is absolutely impossible, at least in the fashion world. And I'm assuming it's the same in any kind of product-based industry, to start a company that you are anticipating it selling at a affordable price without having millions in capital, because the only way you will ever be able to hit that profit margin is with volume. And there's physically no way you can hit those volumes and I'm talking 10,000 plus units overseas in Asia, that not only do you need to physically be there, and that I think not a lot of people realize how important it is to be boots on the ground, especially overseas, or have maybe like the just the capacity to be able to do that. But you're talking about like crazy, crazy volumes to make sure that your production cost is really low so that you can sell your things equally as low and still be able to make that margin. And then you're talking about you have 10,000 units of thongs. Now what? And like when no one knows who you are, and then it's super cheap and everyone's just going to be like, oh, this is this random cheap brand. Like no one's going to take it seriously. Everyone's going to second guess it. I read a lot of marketing and psychology books. I'm really into cults and like what makes humans do the irrational things, right? Like, kind of not only like real cults, but why do people stand outside of a Supreme store for 13 hours? That's almost a cult in it of itself. Like, or how people call cult brands. So I like
You're
that.
like me. Pop psychologist, right? Like I love to know the consumer behavior and the neural and all that stuff.
Because a lot of it doesn't make sense. And I just, one of the many, many psychology marketing books had a really amazing study that it's as simple as it's a known brand and it's an unknown brand. You are trying to compete over the known brand. You price your unknown product higher. People start to question why. Like you have a vacuum that's selling for more than a Dyson. People question why, and they'll start to research, and then they'll be like, maybe I shouldn't get a Dyson. Maybe this one seems fancier and better than a Dyson because it's more expensive. But the moment it's cheaper than a Dyson, you're just like, oh, it's not as good. But it may be just as good. It's that irrationality. So if you are an unknown brand, you're a startup, you need to be priced higher for people to take notice. If you are selling $1,000 brand, people are going to be like, why? What is happening? What's going on? Oh, it's encrusted in Swarovski crystals. And then it has this and it's made in the US and some celebrities worn it. And it's like, ooh, fancy, cool. And then you have like a couple of crazy price pieces, but that's what brings people in. If you start off with a $20 bra, no one's going to take you seriously. They're going to be like, oh, this should be on Amazon. Oh, it's going to fall apart in 2 wears. Oh, this, and this.
I think that is also very pertinent for retailers as well. Like they think they have to charge the same price as the competitors for a product. Like a brand says the retail price is $29.95 and you're like, well, I have to sell it for $29.95. But I just finished an interview with Dean Salakis from the Party People, and he's like, we charge way more than that. Like we charge way more than the recommended retail price because we need to. But what happens is people know that they can get all the things they want from us. And the fact that they don't have to go here, there, and everywhere, or they can ring up and get some information about, we're experts, they will pay more for that. And at the trade show, having all these conversations with people, one of the questions I was asking was, have you put your prices up in the last 2 months? Because everything has gone up. Everything's gone up. Your wages have gone up. Your shipping, we've got fuel surcharges, raw materials, everything. Like if you haven't put your prices up, you are losing money. Just because your competitors haven't done it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And we're trying to explain to people like you can charge more if you have a bigger range, or maybe it's a smaller range, but you have more sizes, because hearing conversations with people saying, oh, I only buy 2 of each size. I'm like, so what happens when you sell out? Like, well, I sell out. But maybe if you were a little bit, smarter and you went, I don't want 5 sizes, I'm just going to get 3 and I'm going to get 10 of everything, then people will pay more because you've got it when everybody else is out of stock. Like, or you have a better range, or you have the accessories, or you've got great branding and you've got packages that put together, or people can get style advice, whatever it is. You don't have to charge what everybody else is charging. And I think that's where what you were saying just then about having the branding, having the knowledge, having that expectation, the customer expectation, and really feeding into that aspiration that we want. Like we all want to have a bit of status. This is why people sell Apple iPhone boxes, like empty boxes for $30. And you're like, it's an empty box.
Or Hermes boxes. Yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
an empty box. Yeah. Like, what the heck? Again, there was no expectation the box was going to be sold, but people want it. And people will come and shop with you for more than just price. So I love that you said that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what your customer experience is like when it comes to packaging.
Oh, this is like my disturbing obsession. And I'm talking like from the youngest age that I can remember, I would save hang tags from like clothing to the point where by the time I was in college and I went to an art school and I knew I was going to do fashion, I created a binder and I just have a running binder of hang tags and every type of little like marketing pamphlet that you would like a postcard, stickers from every brand imaginable. And it was like to the point where when I was actually working at Yeezy, every day I would come into my office and there would just be random packaging from whatever random thing someone bought from somewhere. It would be like someone would go to a cannabis store and they'd be like, wow, this is like smell proof and the packaging is wild. And they're like, we thought you'd really appreciate because there's this like crazy little zipper and it's like this poly thing. And then someone would buy a shirt and they're like, they like sent this in this tube thing. I've never seen it packaged this way. Here's a resource. Here's this. And I truly just have like binders and I have like one box with a bunch of little boxes inside of it of just references. Because if I ever do need to make something, it's always nice to, oh, I like this quality of this cardboard. And it's always those small little details that I think a lot of people don't realize. First, how many options there are and how just nuanced it can be. Even the string of the hang tag, the one I have right now is driving me nuts, but I have 10,000 of them. So I'm just going to have to suck it up and deal with it and then relook at another one. They just always fall off. So but they're gold and all of my things are gold. So I did it for the aesthetic reasons, but the practicality is in there. And now I learned my lesson. Again, you think for all the years I've saved hang tags and all these crazy things, I would know exactly which string to pick. And it's still a learning process. And right now, what is really amazing with lingerie is that it is tiny. And I'm talking my average weight of packages is 0.2 ounces. It is nothing. I could technically put 2 stamps on it and ship it. It's really, really cost efficient for direct to consumer. I ship everything in a really shiny red poly mailer. It's flat, like you see it a mile away, and everything is packaged in gold tissue paper. And then whatever you buy, always it gets put into a drawstring pouch, and every single drawstring pouch is different. They're all made out of dead stock materials, different sizes, different fabrics. All the fabrics are actually like fabrics I have accumulated. You would think that like there really was no other industry for me to go into. It's fabrics I've accumulated over years and years and years. And I'm talking like I have fabrics from my grandmother, from Russia, from like the 80s that just have been in boxes moving every time and you don't know what to do with it. And my mom is on retirement now and she will watch her like soap operas and she'll sit and like make these little drawstring pouches because she's just bored. And it's really helpful and it gives her like something to do. And so every single order comes made by mom, these really cute drawstring pouches. And we have boxes and boxes of them. So until they run out, I'm not going to be ordering any like new ones. But everyone always loves them and you always get a different one because it's just random fabrics. And a lot of them are really beautiful fabrics. Do you tell that story in the packaging? I don't. I really need to. It's whenever I'm in person or doing a pop-up and I'll when I'm putting it into the pouch, that's like one of my spiels so it's not that awkward silence while I'm packaging things up. I'll do like that whole story. But yeah, I really need to do like a whole campaign over it. It's just another thing on the list of many, many things. Add that to the list. But yeah.
All right. I feel like we could talk for so much longer. And this is the thing about great podcast guests. This is a conversation. I've just looked up and we've been talking for an hour. Mm-hmm. So we probably need to wrap this up. Tell me, what are the plans for the future? Once you can breathe post New York Fashion Week, what's the plans for your label and for Masha in the future?
For the brand, short term is right once Fashion Week's done, prepping for Valentine's Day. I typically don't do too much for holiday because it's just too noisy and sales and all that stuff. So instead, I would put all my focus on Valentine's Day and really bumping up wholesale. I want to make sure that our wholesale is really healthy and then eventually be global in wholesale. And I want to expand into party dresses. That's just like, instead of swimwear, I want to do more like going out and just kind of go a different path for the lingerie world. And I think by doing a different category, it will open up more stores. So it's kind of, that's the mindset behind it. And then for me, this is definitely a lifestyle company in terms of I'm not looking for investors to flip this in 7 years. As I said before, I'm not doing this again. I want this to be my company for the end of days, continue to build it and watch it grow. And I personally, just like me within my career, I really want to be on like a board of a for-profit company. I'm on a board for a nonprofit right now. So the goal is to be on a board for a for-profit. And I love consulting and I love helping other startups grow just because I learn so much and I feel like everyone can learn a little bit more. And yeah, so that's where I'm hoping to go.
All right. So if people are listening and they're thinking, I'm going to go and check out this lingerie because maybe I want this in my store, where can they reach you to talk about wholesale contracts?
Yes. So you can DM us on Titov Label. All of our social media is at Titov Label, titoflabel.com. That's all of it. Or you can email me, same thing. It's Masha at titoflabel.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for a great conversation, some great insights. I love hearing the stories about how brands grow and how you work with retailers. And I think you're going to do well in the future. I love your energy and enthusiasm.
Thank you. It's always a good thing to hear.
So that's a wrap. I'd love to hear what insight you've gotten from this episode and how you're going to put it into action. If you're a social kind of person, follow me at @TheSelenaKnight and make sure to leave a comment and let me know. And if this episode made you think a little bit differently or gave you some inspiration or perhaps gave you the kick that you needed to take action, then please take a couple of minutes to leave me a review on your platform of choice. Because the more reviews the show gets, the more independent retail and e-commerce stores just like yours that we can help to scale. And when that happens, it's a win for you, a win for your community, and a win for your customers. I'll see you on the next episode.